There is a particular kind of person who knows exactly what is wrong in their life and has known for years. They know which relationship needs a hard conversation. They know which habit is quietly draining their health. They know the job that no longer fits who they've become. And yet they wait. Not because they lack intelligence. Not because they lack ambition. They wait because some part of them believes that if they just hold on long enough, someone or something will come and fix it for them. A boss will finally notice their effort. A market will finally turn in their favor. A partner will finally change on their own. A feeling of readiness will finally arrive, fully formed, asking nothing of them. Picture a man in a small boat, out on open water, and there's a slow leak near the bow. He doesn't patch it. He bails water instead, one cup at a time, hour after hour, convinced that if he just bails a little faster, a little longer, the problem will resolve itself. He never once turns around to look at the hole. Bailing feels like effort. Bailing feels like doing something. But the boat is still sinking, just slower than it would otherwise. This is what a great many hardworking people are doing with their lives right now. They are bailing water. They wake up early. They answer every email. They show up to the gym, to the office, to the family dinner, doing everything that looks like effort from the outside, and still sinking, just slowly, just quietly enough that they can tell themselves it isn't happening. You already know the plateau I'm talking about. The one where you're doing everything right and somehow still standing in the same place you stood 2 years ago, watching people who started later pass you by. You feel it when you scroll past someone your age who seems to have figured out a door you haven't even found yet. You feel it in the quiet math you do at night about money, about time, about how far behind schedule you suspect you might already be. Here is the observation, plain and without any drama attached to it. Nobody is coming. Not because the world is cruel, not because you've been forgotten, but because rescue was never the structure of how a life gets built. Somewhere along the way, most of us were taught to wait for permission, wait for the right conditions, wait for someone else to hand us the version of our life we actually want. And waiting feels safe. That's the trap of it. Waiting lets you stay busy without ever being responsible. But there is a difference between motion and progress, and most people confuse the two for an entire lifetime. So if nobody is coming to save you from yourself, the question becomes uncomfortable fast. What exactly have you been waiting for? And what has that waiting already cost you? Most people don't stay stuck because they're lazy. That's the part nobody wants to admit, because it would be easier if laziness were the whole explanation. It isn't. Most people stay stuck because they've become excellent at disguising fear as patience. Patience is a virtue when you're building something, and the timeline simply requires more time than you'd like. But there's a counterfeit version of patience, one that looks identical from the outside, and it sounds like this: I'm waiting for the right time. I'm waiting until things settle down. I'm waiting until I feel ready. Ask yourself honestly how long you've been saying some version of that sentence. A year? 5? A decade? Consider a farmer who owns a good field. Rich soil, plenty of sun, everything he needs to grow, something worth harvesting. But every spring he finds a reason to wait. The weather isn't quite right. The prices might improve if he holds off. Maybe next season will be more certain. So he waits through spring, and then it's summer, and planning in summer is foolish, so he waits for next year. The field doesn't punish him for waiting. It simply sits there, patient and indifferent, producing nothing, because a field doesn't care about your reasons. It only responds to what gets planted. This is what happens to a career left unplanted, to a marriage left unplanted, to a body, a skill, a business idea, left unplanted season after season while a person collects reasons instead of results. And the cruelest part is that the reasons are almost always real. The economy really was uncertain. The kids really did need more attention that year. The timing really wasn't perfect. Nobody is lying when they explain why they waited. But a field full of true explanations still grows nothing. Here is why this trap is so effective. Blaming circumstance feels like humility. It feels responsible, even wise, to say it's not the right time, or the market's against me, or I just haven't gotten the right break yet. But underneath that, humility is often something less noble. It's the comfort of never having to find out what you're actually capable of. Because as long as the timing is the problem, you never have to test yourself. You never have to risk discovering that you tried your best and it still wasn't enough. Waiting protects you from that particular kind of pain, right up until it doesn't. Right up until you're 50 or 60, looking back at fields you never planted, wondering where the decades went. You already sense this. It's why the comparison stings the way it does. It's why watching someone else's success feels less like inspiration and more like an accusation. Because deep down, you know the field was always yours to plant. So the question isn't whether you have what it takes. Most people already do. The real question is far more uncomfortable, and it's one that changes everything the moment you're willing to sit with it honestly. Here is the question, and there's no comfortable way to ask it. If nobody is coming to save you, what have you actually been doing with the fact that you're the one who has to? Most people spend years circling a single fork in the road without realizing it's there. On one side sits a question that feels natural, almost instinctive. Who did this to me? Who held me back? Who got the lucky break? Who had the better parents, the better timing, the better connections? It's a fair question. Sometimes the answer is even true, but it's a question that ends in a dead end every single time, because it hands the steering wheel to someone else and then wonders why the car isn't moving where you want it to go. On the other side of that fork sits a harder question, and it's this one that actually leads somewhere. What am I going to do about it? Not what should have happened, not what someone else owes you. What are you, specifically, starting today, going to do about the situation exactly as it stands? This is the turning point, and it rarely arrives with fanfare. It doesn't feel like inspiration. It feels more like exhaustion. The moment you get tired of your own excuses before you get tired of the work required to outgrow them. Responsibility, real responsibility, isn't about guilt or self-blame. It's not about deciding you're the villain of your own story. It's about recognizing that you are the only character in it with a pen in your hand. Think about what changes the instant a person stops asking who's to blame and starts asking what's next. The complaining doesn't just quiet down. The energy that used to go into resentment gets redirected into motion. A person who's busy building rarely has time to keep score of who wronged them. That's not because the wrong stopped mattering. It's because building requires every ounce of attention a person has, and there's none left over for keeping a ledger of unfairness. This is uncomfortable to hear, and it should be, because comfort was never going to get you out of where you are. Responsibility is not a punishment. It is the doorway. On the other side of blame is a strange kind of freedom nobody warned you about. The freedom of knowing that if you're the one who let things slide, you're also the one who can turn them around. Nobody handed you that field in perfect condition, and nobody's coming to plant it for you. But it also means nobody can stop you from planting it either. That's the principle. Simple to say, brutal to live by, and almost impossible to fake. But principles are cheap until you see them tested against real conditions, against real people who had every excuse available to them and chose differently anyway. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Picture two neighbors living on the same stretch of land, facing the exact same winter. Same cold, same short days, same warnings on the radio about the storms coming. Neither one controls the weather. Neither one gets a say in how hard the season will be. But one of them starts cutting and stacking wood in October, while the sun is still out, while the ground is still soft enough to work. The other tells himself there's time. January feels far away in October. There's always something more urgent to do in the moment. Errands, rest, distractions that feel more pressing than a woodpile that isn't needed yet. By December, the first neighbor is warm. Not because he was smarter, not because he had more money or a better start. He was warm because he treated the future as something that was already happening, just not yet visible. The second neighbor spends January in the cold. And here's the part that matters most. He doesn't blame himself for the winter. He blames the winter. He tells anyone who'll listen how brutal this year has been, how unfair, how nobody could have prepared for a cold like this. Everyone nods because it's true that the winter was hard. What goes unsaid is that it was hard for both of them, and only one of them was ready. This is the difference between preparation and hope, and it plays out in careers just as plainly as it plays out in woodpiles. Two people start the same job on the same day, same desk, same manager, same paycheck. One spends evenings learning the skill that isn't required yet, but will be in 2 years. The other spends evenings recovering from a day that didn't ask much of him, because he never asked much of himself either. 5 years later, one of them is running the department. The other is explaining, quite convincingly, why the system is rigged, why the good opportunities always go to people who already have connections, why he never got his shot. He may even be right about the system. Systems are often unfair. But notice something. The man with the woodpile wasn't operating on a belief that life would be fair. He was operating on the belief that fairness was irrelevant to whether he'd be warm in January. He didn't wait for permission from the weather. He didn't need the winter to be reasonable before he'd agree to prepare for it. This is what separates people who look back with peace from people who look back with bitterness. Not talent, not luck, though luck is real. It's this. Some people treat difficulty as a future certainty worth preparing for today, and others treat it as a future emergency they'll deal with when it finally arrives, fully formed at the worst possible moment. So here's the honest question worth sitting with. Where is your woodpile right now? And more importantly, what exact hour of your day have you been spending on errands instead of stacking it? None of this means anything without the next part, because principles that stay in the mind and never reach the hands are just decoration. So let's talk about where responsibility actually lives. It doesn't live in New Year's resolutions. It doesn't live in the version of you that plans to start Monday. It lives in the first hour after you wake up, which is either the most honest hour of your day or the most wasted one, depending entirely on what you do with it. Watch what a person reaches for in that first hour, and you'll know almost everything about where their life is headed. Reach for a phone and let someone else's opinion set the tone for your day, and you've just handed away the one window of time you fully controlled. Reach instead for the thing that actually moves your life forward. The reading, the planning, the training, the quiet work nobody applauds. And you've already won something before the world even had a chance to interrupt you. This is not about discipline for its own sake. Discipline without direction is just noise. The point of that first hour isn't to prove you can suffer. The point is that it's the one part of the day almost entirely free of other people's demands, and what you plant there compounds while everything else is still asleep. The same principle applies to the conversation you've been avoiding. Every stuck career has one. Every strained relationship has one. A conversation with a manager about the raise you've earned but never asked for. A conversation with a partner about the resentment that's been quietly building for months. A conversation with yourself about the habit you keep excusing because admitting it out loud would make it real. Avoidance feels like peace. It isn't. It's just delayed cost with interest attached. Responsibility in daily practice is almost never dramatic. It's rarely a single bold decision that changes everything overnight. It's the 15 minutes you spend learning a skill instead of scrolling. It's the honest sentence you finally say to the person who needed to hear it months ago. It's choosing the harder, quieter path when the easier, louder one is sitting right there, fully available, asking nothing of you. Start small enough that you can't talk yourself out of it, and consistent enough that it stops requiring willpower and starts becoming identity. One honest hour in the morning. One overdue conversation finally had. One skill practiced badly at first, then less badly, then well. This is what ownership actually looks like when you strip away the speeches and the slogans. It looks almost boring from the outside. It rarely photographs well. but it's the only version of change that has ever actually held up over time. And once you've lived this way long enough, something shifts that's hard to describe until you've felt it. You stop needing the rescue you used to wait for. Which brings us back to where all of this started. That boat, that leak, and the choice sitting in front of you right now. Remember the man in the boat, bailing water, hour after hour, never once turning around to look at the hole. That image was never really about a boat. It was about all of us, at some point, working hard at the wrong thing while the real problem sat a few feet behind us, waiting to be noticed. Here's what nobody tells you about that man. The day he finally turns around, the day he sets the cup down and looks at the leak directly, he doesn't need new tools. He doesn't need a rescue boat to pull alongside him. He needs about 10 minutes and the willingness to stop bailing long enough to fix what's actually wrong. Most people never get there, not because the fix is hard, but because turning around means admitting how long they've been facing the wrong direction. You've spent this time hearing about fields left unplanted, wood piles left unstacked, mornings handed away to a phone instead of a purpose. None of it was ever really about farming or firewood. It was about you and the particular leak you've known about for longer than you've admitted out loud. You know what it is. You knew before this started. So here's the moment that matters more than anything said before it. Not someday. Not once things settle down. Not when you finally feel ready, because that feeling was never coming to introduce itself first. Turn around now. Look at it directly. The relationship, the habit, the conversation, the skill you've been circling for years without ever fully committing to it. Whatever it is, it's been waiting for you far longer than you've been waiting for permission. Nobody is coming to save you from yourself. Say that plainly, without flinching, because it's not a punishment. It's the most liberating sentence you'll hear all year. It means the ending hasn't been written yet. It means the plateau isn't a verdict. It's just where you stopped climbing. It means the winter you're dreading can still be prepared for, starting this afternoon, starting with one log, one honest hour, one conversation you've been avoiding since the summer you told yourself you'd handle it. You don't need a new life to start proving this to yourself. You need the same life, faced honestly, starting today. That's the whole secret, and it was never actually hidden. It was just uncomfortable enough that most people preferred to keep bailing water instead of turning around. If any part of this found you tonight, don't let it end here, sitting quietly in your chest and going nowhere. Write down the one thing you've been avoiding. Say it to someone who'll hold you to it. Come back to this kind of thinking often, because growth isn't a single decision. It's a direction you have to keep choosing, day after day, long after the motivation fades. Stay close to whatever keeps you honest about that. Follow it. Return to it. Let it hold you accountable the way a good mentor would. Not because you need saving, but because you've finally decided you're worth the effort of building. The boat is still yours. The leak is still there. But for the first time, so is the choice to finally turn around.